Good afternoon and welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at MarketSite is David Cohen, who's the CEO of the Museum of American Finance. David, as always, thank you for joining me at MarketSite. And today is an important day in American finance, as it is the anniversary of the death of Alexander Hamilton. And he's not just famous for that play.
Correct.
He really is a founding father of the American financial system.
So 214 years ago, he died. The duel was on July 11th. He dies on July 12th. The museum's part of a wreath-laying ceremony that's going on pretty much right now down graveside at Trinity Church. But he is the architect of the American financial system as the first Secretary of the Treasury.
All right, so explain to us what you have here today and what it represents for American finance.
Oh my God, this is the Holy Grail. It's the economic equivalent of the Constitution. It's his report on public credit. It's his first of 5 monumental state papers he's going to put in front of Congress. And in this case, he's saying we should take over all the leftover debt from the Revolutionary War. It was state debt, Continental Congress, international debt. This is radical when you think about history, Jill, and you think about the Russians. Communists, when they come to power, they repudiate the Tsar's debt. When the communists come to power in China, they renege on Shanghai Shek's debt. Hamilton says, no, we should assume it. And he writes 16,000 odd words in this amazing report. It's going to get passed. But I can boil this down to 6 words. And these 6 words of why we should do this, America, was the price of liberty. And those are really cool words that a nation should live by. And so Hamilton gets this through, but not before the most famous trade in American history. He's going to meet in Lin-Manuel Miranda in the show. It talks about the room where it happened. He's going to get the Southerners to agree to assume all this debt in exchange for the capital to be on the shores of the Potomac 10 years hence, and they buy off Philadelphia for 10 years with the capital.
What do you think Alexander Hamilton would think of our debt system today?
Oh, dear Lord. So here is our national debt. I'm going to show you a document in a minute of what's going to happen once this passes. A direct line today's $21-odd trillion worth of debt. Hamilton said a national debt, if it is not excessive, will be a national blessing. And there isn't a financial historian or economist alive who isn't saying that our national debt isn't a little bit excessive. And so what comes out of this is our next document. And of the 13,000 record locators, and some of those have 100 documents at the museum, this is arguably our most special. So what happens is you turn in your bonds. And this is a particular Virginian I'm going to show you who turned in his bonds in exchange for new U.S. federal bonds. The direct line, as I said, to our national debt today. And these are George Washington's bonds.
So he's actually signed.
He has signed them on the back, and as we like to say, other museums might have his false teeth. We got his treasury bonds.
We have his money.
And what happened here is we were effectively bankrupt as a nation at our inception, and Hamilton knew this. So when all these bonds were turned in, he gave everyone, the bondholders, a haircut. And what he did brilliantly was create the deferred market. So you got a 3% bond, a 6% bond, and then one that started paying interest 10 years hence. You got a haircut of about 4% blended, and that's how we managed the finances of our country early on.
All right, let's check out the other artifact that you brought today.
So
this is really cool.
I brought you one other gem. So the backstory on this is the Revolutionary War. The French are helping us militarily, but they're also helping us financially. And again, the Continental Congress effectively broke. So we're going to open a bank in 1781, and that bank is called the Bank of North America. The French are going to give us 35 crates of silver to open the bank, and that bank's going to lend to the government, and then they're going to go fight the decisive battle by paying the soldiers who haven't paid in 5 or 6 years down at Yorktown. So 100 years later, this is the 100th anniversary book. Like a stamp collector, someone starts pasting objects into this book. And there is a unique item on page 53 that we must be careful with.
It's amazing how somebody thought or had the foresight to collect all these artifacts and
paste them in. And there's some incredible things. But here it is, Jill. So we're looking at a bank check, and it says cashier of the bank because there's
only one bank.
There's only one bank, so you don't need to say the name of it. And this is the anti-counterfeiting device, but that's nothing special. Ben Franklin had been doing that for a long time. It's one merchant to another. It's in 90th dollars. Why is that? That's Pennsylvania dollars. 10 years later, there's going to be something called a report on a mint. that Hamilton's going to pass through Congress. That's going to set our U.S. dollar as the standard measure. These are Pennsylvania dollars.
So before, just like with the euro, each country had their own individual
Each state
currency.
did, yes.
So same with this, with the
Yes,
states. Got it.
exactly with the states. You got it. And what's amazing here and unique, 2 July 1782. This is the earliest known bank check in the public domain. And we glibly say, right, you put an ISBN number on this and off you go. People know what this is. And so these are the kind of artifacts we have. We've got our nation's financial heritage at the museum.
And that's why it's so important in a series that you just created, Why Wall Street Matters, to understand how these documents work and how it's framed our financial network.
There's no question, and Hamilton, of all the founders, if he ever came back today, would understand it. And so we went and talked with major CEOs like Adina Friedman and asked them that question. You can find that video and her answer on Why Wall Street Matters at www.moaf.org. I brought this, though, for another reason also. Nasdaq traces its roots to 1971. But in reality now, you own the Philly Exchange.
Yep.
And this is a Philadelphia bank check. And just a
8
few
years later,
8 years later,
1790, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange opened.
That's right. So Nasdaq's roots actually go back to the origins of our country as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much, David, for sharing all these artifacts.
This
is fantastic.
Love to come back again.
All right.
We've got a lot of them.
You got it. And thank you for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.